This is the CreaseCast.
So this is a little bit of an unusual turn. I am starting the show today. And the reason I am starting the show today is because Cody has not recently seen the Pacific Division standings. And, you know, we're about a week and a half into the season. The Canucks have played 6 games. That's I would say that's as good a time as any to kind of like start taking a look at where teams are at. Because this is really like the first bit of the season can make or break your year, right? Like it can completely change how teams look at the rest of the year, how they approach the rest of the season, like your mentality. So I feel like this is a good place to start with. And so Cody, I'm going to tell you that what you should do is I'm going to just read out the names. I'm going to read out the points, the place they are in the standings. And you just let me know when something sounds a little weird to you. Okay. So in first place, currently undefeated 5-0, the Edmonton Oilers, 10 points. They have got 10 points. They have, I would say personally that one is one of those cases where literally with the Oilers, because of who they are, plus and having Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, they could finish anywhere between 82-0 and 0-82. And I'd be like, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah,
like
that tracks.
That tracks. Exactly. Okay. In second place, very much as we all would expect, you know, with a 4-1 record, 8 points, the San Jose Sharks.
I guess that's a bit weird, but not surprising.
Surprising?
Yeah,
they're a bit rebuilding.
They were so bad last year that it's like they transcended like where they usually are. That I can believe that they would start their season with like a 4-1 record. They also, of course, have a former Canucks prospect, Jonathan Dahlen, lighting it up for them, and other Canucks prospect, Jonah Gadjevich, who scored his first point in his first NHL game this season. Point per game pace for Jonah, good for him. But yeah, that tracks for me for how early we're talking in this season is. Like that tracks, not too weird.
Not too weird. Okay. In third, the Vancouver Canucks. With of course their 6 games played, the tied for the most in the division. They have a 3-2-1 record, with 7 points, and we're going to talk plenty about that record right now. But 7 points, third place. That's right about where I think we expected
that
them
tracked.
To be.
It is a bit surprising because it is not that very impressive of a record. 3-2-1 isn't really that impressive, but first, 7 points gets you third this early in the season. I believe it. It's not too weird.
Not too weird. Okay. In fourth place, tied, I should say, I guess technically tied for fourth place, are the Calgary Flames. They're 2-1-1. They played 4 games. They have 5 points. On the other side, having played 2 games more than Calgary, same amount of points, are the Anaheim Ducks. They're 2-3-1. They're 2-3-1.
That's a bit of a weird one.
Really,
Anaheim, I thought would be just dead last for the entire season.
That is where I would expect. I would agree with you. I expected Anaheim to be last.
Even like 3 games in the season, like I would have been like, yeah, there's no way they should win anything. Like their team has nothing going for it.
It's literally John Gibson just carrying a dead weight on his back.
Generally
speaking, a lot of old guys, like some very good young prospects, like Jamie Drysdale, Trevor Zegras, but like very much down the road is what they're looking at. They're not trying to win a cup this year.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's, we're through 5 here. Okay. In 6th, third to last, with 3 points. So 2 points back of Anaheim, albeit with one less game played, 1-3-1 record, the Los Angeles Kings.
That tracks.
Yeah. I would agree with that as well. In 7th, also with 3 points, 1 game extra played, 1-4-1, second to last, the Seattle Kraken, the expansion Kraken.
To some people, that will seem very bizarre. To me, that also tracks because I thought their expansion draft and the process surrounding it was a complete mess. So I'm not surprised at all that they aren't really getting off to that hot of a start. Also, their coach is Dave Haxtell, and nothing he's done in his NHL career has ever convinced me that he could, have a winner out of the gate, regardless of what roster he had. So these all track as
These
far
all
as I'm
track.
concerned.
These
The
all
only
tr-
ones that don't really track is the third place team being 7-point Canucks. That's pretty lame.
That is pretty lame. But of course, we haven't even gotten to the team in last, which is with 2 points, a 1-4-0 record. They won their first game, and they have not won since. The Vegas Golden Knights, as we all expected, right? Like this is more why I wanted to start here.
That is the biggest, like, whoa, what is going on?
The
type
bottom
situation.
just dropped out for them. And like we're going to talk about it more when we get to the NHL stuff today. But oh my god, I watched Vegas last night. Like I watched them last night specifically cuz I knew they were not in a good spot.
Mhm.
And I was watching a team that looked nothing like the Knights that I'm used to seeing. And they're, to be fair, they're missing Mark Stone, they're missing Alec Martinez, Max Pacioretty, Zach Whitecloud, and Alex Tuck. They're missing basically a whole line. They're missing a whole forward line, including their captain, which is like a
kind
lot.
of a big deal.
Which is a big deal for
Selkie
sure.
candidate captain in Mark
Exactly.
Stone.
Bingo. Exactly. But at the same time, based on what we know about the Knights of the past, you kind of still expect them to be at least in the conversation at the top. And for them to be literally in the bottom of the barrel behind the expansion team that didn't do so well, the one that's is meeting expectations as expected to a degree, is wild. And we're gonna have a lot more to talk about with the Knights later because there's even more like juicy stuff about them to talk about of recent note. But I mostly just want to start there. The Canucks are they're third place with 7 points. And I think the fact that's most shocking, I think, coming into this is the fact that again the Canucks haven't been particularly good necessarily. They've been very okay, and yet we're in a case where if the Canucks had just gotten a few of the points, let's say half the points out of those Detroit and Buffalo games where they really, like the Detroit one where they got goalied, the Buffalo game where they absolutely stunk. If they get even half the points out of those two, they're in ninth and they're second. They're second in the division right now behind only Edmonton.
It is a bit strange because it is like, I mean, the discourse following the Seattle win too was like, look, they've turned their season around. They've figured it out. And it's like the Seattle Kraken were 1-3-1 at the time. Like beating them is not breaking the hump. You're just beating bad teams.
Yeah, let's just get into we should just get into the Kraken game here, because here's the thing, like the one thing I will say that I agree on, and this is something I talked about before this game happened, was the fact that I think this game mattered arguably more than just about any other game will in the entire rest of the year. Not because there's any playoff implications, not because there's any like sort of like, you know, important 2 points on the line necessarily, but about the fact that this is literally, again, this is your brand new geographical rival that you're playing for the very first time in their new building. And you want nothing more than to be the team that wins the first game. There are lots of games you will both be good at different points. You'll both be bad at different points. You only get one chance to win the first game, and they did it.
Yeah, that was a big win for like franchise history records. Just like, they could lose every single matchup from here on. Like, it's not the Pittsburgh Penguins thing where like they've won every single matchup against the Canucks for like since like 2005 or something like that. It's them. It's either Pittsburgh or some other team. But
I think it's somebody else, because I remember in particular there were a couple years where Luongo was just shutting down Crosby and Malkin like nobody's business. So
I know they have some kind of weird stat where some team has just like historically like beaten the shit out of them since like the no-ness days.
I'm trying to. I think it might be Philly. Like that might I think you're in the right ballpark. I think it might be Philly. We'll have to double check on that. But like
maybe. But people don't worry about the streaks until you're 10 years down the road into that streak. But they'll always remember that the Canucks won the first one. Yes. And that's the hardest one to do.
You only get because you only get one shot at it. Like in a way,
Yeah.
like I always kind of kid, like I joke that like the Calder Trophy, as far as like NHL individual awards, is technically the hardest to win because you only get one chance at it. You get plenty of chances at the Hart or the Vezina. You only get one shot at the Calder.
You know, Eminem wrote a song, and I believe the lyrics were something to the effect of "You only have one chance, one opportunity."
Mom
and
spaghetti.
something about mom spaghetti. I think it was a song about Italy. I can't remember, but
I think so.
The point is, sometimes there are really important competitive events that happen in a franchise or a player's arc, and this was one for the Canucks. And yes, Seattle sucks right now. They're really bad. They are.
I think they're better than they've been playing. Like, I think they're better than that. I think they've just had a rough start. Like, I think they're better than on paper.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, like, across the league, like, it isn't just Seattle. There are a lot of teams that on paper should be way better than what their current record indicates. I think checking the scores right now, Toronto is down 3-1 to Carolina. And not saying like Carolina is like a bad team, but Toronto is spectacularly underperformed relative to what their rosters look like.
And what you're used to seeing from them, yeah.
Yeah, and by that same token, though, I think when we did our little season preview, we basically ranked teams, how we thought the season was going to end. And a lot of the times it came down to, oh, this team could be here. They could be third. They could be fourth. But if something goes wrong with goaltending or X position, the bottom falls out. And we're already seeing the bottom fall out because of those X factors like this early. Like Robin Lehner has not been good. The tandem in Toronto, it looks like a disaster. I tweeted about it like a joke, but I cannot believe they saddled themselves to Jack Campbell and Petr Mrazek as like their tandem to go forward with. Like, Jack Campbell waited until 29 years old to finally kind of break out as a goalie, and he did so against the same 5 teams or 6 teams in the Canadian division. He didn't even play any of the American teams, and they were like, yeah, this will work when we start going across the border and playing the Carolinas, playing the Washingtons, etc. So, baffling decision. I'm sure they're going to flip Marner for a goalie or something. Watch him flip Marner to Vegas for Robin Lehner or something really stupid.
Like Vegas, and then somehow Vegas just magically has like an even better goalie.
They just get Fleury back for nothing.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, if you want Fleury back, we'll talk about Chicago later.
They're couldn't happen to a nicer organization.
Couldn't happen to a better organization.
But why don't we talk about the Seattle game? Because I've got a story about the Seattle game.
Oh, I'm excited.
So we'll get into this a bit later as well, but I obviously was very busy with the Abbotsford Canucks this past weekend, so I was really gassed after the first game, the Friday game, because I decided to drive Harmon Dial to his house from Abbotsford. And at the time, I really was just like, I don't want to drop him off at a SkyTrain station at 11:30 at night. Like, that seems really mean. It's like dark out and crappy. Like, it just seems like a disaster waiting to happen. So I'll just do the nice thing. I'll just drive him home. Ran out of gas on the way there, so that was good. And got home at like 1:00. Still had to upload all my my video clips because the internet at the Abbotsford Center can't really handle it. And then I had to finish all my write-ups and all that stuff. So I was up until 4 a.m. after having woken up at 6:30 a.m. the previous. Oh, sorry, that's a lie. 5:30 a.m. the previous morning. So I was up for 23 hours. And so I was very tired on Saturday, but I had to for whatever reason, I woke up at 10 a.m. after going to bed
like
at 4.
Fresh as a daisy, I'm sure.
Completely fine. My body was like, yep, you're fine. And I was like, no, I'm not ready. And I had the radio hit with Faber on his program, the pregame or the Canucks warm up on Sportsnet.
I listened in live to that. I was very proud.
And I had planned my day around the fact that I was going on radio. So I was like, I'm going to go hang out with friends. We're going to go to the breweries. We're going to like have a gas and I'm going to steal away and then do this radio hit. And then we'll go back to partying. That didn't really go to plan. So I went to the brewery, had some brews, stole away while we waited for Italian dinner and never got in. But after the radio hit with 650, my body finally caught up with the 4 a.m. and was like, you need to sleep now.
Oh, it
And
just hit you like a
it was
truck.
like I hung up the phone. I was in like a back alley because I thought I sounded really good. So I let out like a big like woo in the alley. And then
You
like
did.
when I made that noise, all of the energy in my body went with it. And I was in this alley in Port Moody, and I was like, I have to walk like 6 blocks home. I am so tired now.
Your body literally went like basically what happened is your body literally went, oh, I know I have this thing. I have this thing at like whatever. Like I think it was your hit was at 5, so I think it ended around like 5:15, around at 5:20.
Yeah, something like that.
Somewhere around there. Your body was literally going, okay, at 5:21, at 5:20, we are using every last ounce of energy we have to keep this man alive until 5:20. After that, all bets are off, and it just went pew. You just shut off.
Yeah,
that tracks, my guy.
Yeah, so apologies to my friends who went to my house. They went to my house afterwards because I was in the alley, and then Roxy shepherded them to our house, and I got home after what felt like ages of walking. I set up the Kraken Vancouver game on our TV, inhaled my dinner, and then 2 hours later, so like midway through the second, I fell asleep. I just completely crashed with a bunch of people at my house. So shout out to all my friends who actually listen to this podcast. We love your support. I'm
thank you for keeping my co-host alive.
Thanks for not robbing me.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry for falling asleep on my couch, or sorry, on my bed actually, with the door wide open. But this is what happens when you say
that is
goodbye to your sleep schedule. It really is. They don't rob you after that.
It's not just that. It's the fact of like you could literally like true friendship is when you can literally just conk out in the middle of hanging out, and they will not even bat an eye or like care. Like they'll just be like, "Oh, this our buddy needs his sleep," so we're not gonna be like upset at that. We're just gonna hang out for a bit and then let him have his nap because he needs it. That's true friendship for sure.
So it was really funny because when I fell asleep, the Horvat goal hadn't happened yet. The tying goal. So as far as I knew, it was 1-0 for Seattle. The Canucks looked absolutely dreadful. They were just getting beat everywhere. And I think I retweeted Tucker Pullman GIF because he had like some fumbled pass or something, and I just was laughing at how bad his puck control is. And
I remember that.
I fell asleep and woke up because I had to let my friends into the underground parking so they could leave. And I look at my phone and I have like 40 notifications, and it's because Conor Garland, the hero, put in the performance of a lifetime to tie the game and then get the game-breaking goal. And so I have 2 ats from Wyatt Arndt the Stanchion being like, "Hi, Cody," and I was like, "What happened? How did this happen?" So fill me in, Lachlan. What happened in that third period to turn everything around?
So basically, what happened was, you conked out at 1-0, right? Like you the first Horvat goal you conked out before the first one.
Before that, yeah.
So the Horvat has the goal. That line of Horvat, Garland, and Pearson were basically just the only thing the Canucks had like going for them offensively. The first period they were very good. This is kind of why we'll get into like why we're still very, very like tentative on the Canucks right now, and why we're being like kind of like tiptoeing with them a little bit. But in like the final 40 minutes of that game, literally the only offense that could really be sparked, with the exception of a little bit of again Nils Höglander being Nils Höglander and just being an energy hog, was that Garland, Horvat, Pearson line. Like they were the only ones who were able to consistently sustain pressure. Mark Giordano scores in the third period about pretty early on. I think like 5 minutes into the third period, it's 2-1 Seattle, and you're kind of like, well, this is probably how it's going to go, because literally for all that second period, it was just the Thatcher Demko show. Like, it was just Thatcher Demko standing on his goddamn head for an entire, really for the last 40 minutes. Like, he was on fire the entire game. Like, it was arguably the best game I've ever seen from him. He looked so incredible and was straight up bailed the Canucks out. Like, they don't come close to winning that game again without him playing as well as he did. Horvat gets the tying goal, gets a second, ties the game. There's about 5 minutes left, and Garland beats a Kraken defenseman to a loose puck down the corner. He streaks in, fakes the shot on Grubauer coming in from the right side. Grubauer bites big time on it, in terms of just like, he does not even move. Like, he very much freezes up, thinking he's about to get like a teed up one-timer hard slap shot up high. But instead Garland just feathers it slowly through the pads. Like, it's a perfect play. And it's one of those, literally, you can see Grubauer mid-shot. Like, it's the Ralph. You can watch the picture the second where his heart breaks in half.
Where
you
he
can
just knows that he's beat.
He
he's like,
knows
no!
immediately what he does, because you literally can see it mid as the puck is sliding past his legs in the net. You see his head go up. Like, you just see you see that. Like, that's just immieately. I know that face too well, because I've done it 1,000 times. And Conor Garland. There's celebration in the corner. At one point, I think Wyatt pointed this out again, the whole really feeding into the Garland is small thing, where Horvat basically shoves him like, hey, Adam, and he nearly falls over. Like, just incredible.
It's like their new shtick is like, I guess Seinfeld came onto Netflix, and so now everyone's doing the Elaine Benes get out and just shoving each other as hard as they can to try and knock them over. I love it. It's a cute little thing they do post game. So my question to you then is, who is your Infinity Blocker winner? Is it Thatcher Demko for bailing them out in those first few periods, or is it Conor Garland for playing so astutely that he managed to not only tie the game but also break the tie with his performances?
This is this is probably the hardest Infinity Gauntlet decision I've ever had to make.
Okay.
But the reason, here's the thing. I'm going the way you'd expect. I'm going with Demko, and here's why. It's not because necessarily because it's not the goalie angle for, in this case, so much as it is the fact of, I think the game that Demko played was so good, was so incredibly good, that it is one of those games. It was one of those games and one of those like moments in history, I think, like in hockey history, where I think down the line, he's like a folklore legend in Seattle. In like in the sense of like, literally, whenever anyone tells the story of, I was at the first Kraken home game, I was at their inaugural game, like 20 years down the road, and they'll literally be talking about like at that time, like, if only Thatcher Demko hadn't played so amazing, we would have won. Because that's literally what it came down to. They would have won that game if Thatcher Demko doesn't put up the performance that he does. And I think that's one of those cases where like the legend kind of outgrows the person kind of thing. Like, just, it was that kind of a performance. Like in the same way, like in Seattle with like, I think it's like the Beast Quake, right? Like the Marshawn Lynch touchdown. Yeah. I've watched that touchdown before. It's not that like, there's nothing particularly special about the touchdown itself. It's a very routine, like it's a relatively routine play for Marshawn Lynch that he makes all the time. But it's the whole, he made the ground shake. It's the fact that he set off a literal earthquake, like a literal miniature earthquake because of how loud the fans were in Seattle. That's why that's legendary to this day.
It's an iconic moment.
It's an iconic moment that transcends the actual person. I think what Thatcher Demko did in a different kind of way is going to be looked at in that same way, where it'll be like, I remember Thatcher Demko in his first game against the Kraken. He had pads the size of tree trunks. He was 12'4". Like, that was like, it'll be one of those like legends of like Paul Bunyan kind of thing. With Thatcher Demko and just how incredible he was in that game.
Okay, well, that's fair. To stick with my shtick of not appreciating Conor Garland, I'm not going to give it to him. And I'll agree with you, and
Jeez.
I'll also give it to Thatcher Demko.
Wow, you're not wanting to agree on goalies.
Yeah,
Your hatred, your arch nemesis Conor Garland outweighed not
yes.
wanting to give like positives about the goalies.
Yeah, I just don't respect a man who spins on ice, and I can never reward him as such. Therefore, I'll break the rule that I set for you when I said you can't pick Demko more than twice in a month, and here I am picking Demko twice in a single month. So that's the way things go.
There you go. And Garland, I will say, also had the great play. I don't know if you saw the video or like the great moment. Emily Kaplan of ESPN caught it because ESPN was broadcasting that game.
Mhm.
She caught that apparently during one of the games. A Kraken fan was literally just giving it to Garland behind the bench, like behind the glass. So it was just chirping him the entire way through. Garland would not look at him, would just not even give him the light of day. He scores the goal. He comes back, and again, shout out to ESPN because they caught it on camera. They caught the shot of him just death glaring this fan as he gets back to the bench, and that is phenomenal. Like, and I love how he coyly tries to deny it after and the presser.
And then he's just like,
when
like,
what do you? I don't know what you're talking about. Like,
I know exactly what you're talking about, but I'm gonna pretend I don't know. What
openly,
you're talking about.
like on camera, caught red-handed doing it, and I love it. It just makes me love him as a player more. That's the kind of like that's cool. Like that's the kind of funny, like kind of like that's the kind of things that you get in like a good season. Like in a way, like if this ends up being a good year, like those are the kind of moments that people will remember, like being like, oh, remember when Conor Garland just death stared a Seattle fan and just
a random guy in their home game.
Yeah, and he just turned him into dust, like right then and there. I did want to ask you, like, from what you saw of the game, like again, first home opener for Seattle and everything. You know, the brand new building and everything. I don't actually know if you've ever been to if you ever went to the old Key Arena, like if you ever did anything. Like I don't know, like if you've ever like done that many trips down to Seattle or anything.
I think I've only ever done one in my life, and no arenas for me.
No arenas. Fair enough. We'll try and work on that.
We'll work on that.
I think that they play next January 1st, so we got some time.
We
have some time to figure that out. But yeah, the building looks, I will say this, the building, like for all the, you know, all the other stuff and the fact that we're going to hate this team probably for a very long time, the building is spectacular. Like that was cool. Like I loved it. I don't know how you felt, but honestly, like, and you know, there's the whole thing of like, I think we've talked about it before. Like, you know, it's called Climate Pledge Arena. There is the whole question of, oh, can you really talk about environmentally friendly through purchasing and consumerism? Like, again, that's a whole 3-hour show within itself. But as far as like from what I've seen from like what they've done with that building and kind of like the things that they are doing with it, I like it's stuff where I'm like, I hope the Canucks look at kind of some of the things they do there and try to incorporate it into the building that they have and try to find ways to incorporate that stuff. Yeah,
like I like the game presentation.
Really? Okay.
I know Vegas kind of set like a really high bar with like the on ice graphics and like the pregame like visual show or whatever, and they introduced the stupid like alarm or air raid siren
that now every team has. Yeah,
I cannot stand that. Not every team has taken everything they're doing, but I like that Seattle recognized that Vegas had done something different and then hired the guy who created all of that and then hired him to create a brand new, a wholly unique pregame ceremony for the Seattle Kraken. Like that's cool. I would love it if Vancouver kind of took like notice from them and being like, okay, this is a direct like geographic rival. Like we need to compete with their on ice product, and we have to do something so much more than just like whatever it is. Let's bring back U2 as the intro song. Like they need to do something so much more to like make it like a unique product, because how many years have they skated by on the fact like remember 2011? Like
remember 94? Remember 1994?
Yeah,
it's that thing that the majority of our fan base right at this point was not alive for.
Like the nostalgia factor can only carry an organization so far for marketing, and I would love it if their big takeaway from the Seattle home opener was like, hey, we should really spice things up a bit. Like, remember when they did the video where it was they were like knocking like zombies into like the glass.
That
and
was
stuff.
incredible. I love
that. Was great.
That was great.
But that should be like every game, something like that is playing beforehand and incorporated in the on ice graphics or whatever. Just something different and cool.
Yeah. One of the things that I think like the pandemic really killed for the Canucks was I was really liking, like you mentioned, that was the 50th anniversary was that year. That was the zombie film thing.
Mhm.
That was a lot of stuff like the chain redoing all the banners to match the colors of the era and everything. That was all that year. The jerseys during warmups, like seeing the flying V again, seeing the skate, which is apparently coming back this year too. It's the new third jersey, from what I've heard. It's a new third jersey because I think the stick and rink jersey is gone, from what I can tell. And all that stuff. And they did such a good job with it. Like that was one of the first times where I was like, oh, the Canucks have actually really stepped it up in the like the in-game entertainment department and like the hype video department, which is, I think, important in this day and age. Like it's really important. I will say personally, I was underwhelmed by the Kraken, like in game.
Oh, really?
I thought it was lacking. Like Vegas high bar set a crazy high bar. One that hockey teams are just generally not ready to match at this point in hockey's evolving culture. But I thought Seattle could have done more. And I heard, I guess part of that might have been just due to the fact that the arena was literally just getting done like over the course of like the last week or so, because they just grand opened like the day before or like 2 days before was the official grand opening of the building. So that I think that kind of played into why it was a little bit underwhelming, because I was like, they didn't even do like a ceremonial puck drop. They didn't do like, there was no mascot, there was no nothing, like there was no like any, like again, no graphic, like ice graphics, like they didn't have like a, I don't know what exactly I would have expecting from them. Like I guess more I expected them to really play into the Kraken like mythical creature aspect that I felt was not there.
Yeah, fair enough. Like I guess I was like super wiped and exhausted, so it came off a lot better than
it was fine.
Really was.
Like it was, but the 32 was embarrassing. That was a bit of a a bit much.
I actually completely forgot about that. I actually just did everything I just said about their pregame ceremonies.
Erase it right now.
I completely forgot about that. That actually, they don't deserve any praise because that was so deeply embarrassing. I can't believe I forgot about that. My brain was like, you don't want to remember this.
That was the most that was the most high profile thing they did in that ceremony. And that was like, oof. That was weird. Like again, say what you want about the Canucks and like how they've maybe retired too many jerseys, or like for a team that has not won a championship or whatever.
When they hung the seventh man banner.
I was at that game. I have that flag. I have the flag that they handed out from those games still to this day. I was at that game. It was so funny. And it's so funny looking back on it, knowing that I was like one of the only people that ever saw that be a thing in the building. But yeah, that was I feel some bit of way about teams retiring jerseys for the sake of retiring a jersey. And I already heard a rumor that apparently when they play Montreal, I think Jeff Merrick was hinting at the idea that apparently they might throw a Stanley Cup banner up there for the Seattle Metropolitans because they played the Canadiens to win that cup. Back in 1909 or whatever, or whenever they won that championship, like the Metropolitans won that championship against Montreal. The exact same team coming to the building on tomorrow. And I was like, and again, another one of those cases where I'm like, that's bad, like that's a bad omen. Never hang a cup banner that you did not yourself
your win. Organization never actually won.
No, if you want to do it, if you want to do it after you win something, go ahead. Be my guest. Not before. Never before. That's a bad omen. You should. Especially
when it happened like 100-something years ago.
Exactly. Like I would love for the Canucks to hang up like a Vancouver Millionaires Stanley Cup championship banner, but not until they actually win one themselves. There's a reason why that's not up there. And it would be cool because again, commemorating hockey history in your area is great. Like that is cool.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Just, don't hang a championship banner that you did not yourself win unless you have one already to show for it. Cause then it looks like you're trying to like pass it off as your own. And that's sad.
Like that comes off like you're desperately trying to convince like new fans, like
we have a winning culture.
We're relevant. We know how to win.
Yeah, we have a winning culture. We won 100 years ago, and then we just kind of put it all on pause for about 85 years, and
Yeah.
here we are. Or I guess like close to 100 now. Yeah,
Yeah. It's
we
a
just
long
put
ass
it in
time ago.
we put it in park. But yeah, I think overall, like I will say this. I saw some people like in terms of like some people like the Canucks did like a hype video. They did like a whole thing. They were really like, oh, what are we gonna call this rivalry thing? And I saw some people getting like a little bit like I guess I'll say like annoyed about it, like getting a little bit overly annoyed about it, where they were like, this is forced, this is pointless, like there's no history there. It's like okay, but also like why not? Like this team doesn't again.
They have
This
nothing else, right?
the Canucks don't have a rival. I think I had an epiphany the other day. Let me know what you think here.
Okay.
Of like how to describe what the Canucks have gone through for the first 50 years until now with Seattle is the Canucks for a lot of teams will say, I think in particular, if you asked a lot of Canucks fans who their main rival is, I think they would say probably Calgary. They'd probably say Edmonton. They might maybe say Chicago, Boston, but that's a little different. I would say it's probably like Calgary, Edmonton, and then maybe like San Jose. Maybe.
Yeah, and even then, right?
And in both of those cases, I think if we were to like, let's say if we were to kind of like put it in say like superhero terms, for example, like the arch nemesis kind of vibes, if the Flames are Batman, let's say the Flames are Batman, the Canucks for the Flames are like the Penguin. They're an important villain, a very important villain. They've gone through a lot of history. They've had a lot of battles, but they're not the Joker. The Oilers are the Joker. When people think of Batman, they think of, who do they think of as his main rival? It's the Joker, and that's Edmonton. For Edmonton, it's Calgary. For San Jose, the Joker is LA. Maybe Anaheim on a rare occasion. The Canucks have never been somebody else's true arch rival. Like they've just never had. They're just there. They're just there because like they've had scraps, like they've had like important battles for sure, but they've never been the team. Like they've never been the team for somebody else except for like rare years. Like, and that's why I think this matters. This is the first time that I think they're actually going to have a real like Batman Joker-esque kind of arch nemesis in Seattle if things go well.
Yeah, I guess that tracks because I mean it'd be really funny if like Seattle like had a bunch of heated games with like Anaheim, and then the Canucks lost their geographic rival immediately.
You mean like how Arizona and Vegas was supposed to be a big rivalry, and that completely never happened because the Coyotes just kept getting their asses handed to them.
So bad that you like. That's the thing is like a rivalry has to begin when the teams are like on the level playing field for most of the time. Like during the 80s, like Calgary and Edmonton were like competitive with each other. Like at one point. Edmonton went on their run of cups, and then Calgary won one a few years later. Like it checks out that they would have a rivalry because they were both competitive during the same window. Obviously, one of them had the greatest player of all time, and that's kind of fucking hard to beat. The Canucks is just like, it's like, okay, who did we most recently lose to in the playoffs? That's our rival, right? It's like it's Blackhawks. Oh, that rivalry's dead. I guess it's the Flames now. Oh, we've been garbage for years. Who's our rival? I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess Calgary? Yeah. Calgary, sure.
Yeah, and again, Calgary doesn't think about us in that way. Like if you ask them the other way around, they would not tell you that their arch rival is
They'd be
Vancouver.
Like,
They'd say it's Edmonton.
You're nothing to us.
Basically, yeah. And a part of that is again due to the geographical aspect of the NHL and the fact that like of course Edmonton the obviously the history matters, but of course the two Alberta teams are going to hate each other more than one of them will hate Vancouver. They don't have like there's no bragging rights there's not necessarily any major bragging rights on the line there outside of a division title. So it does have to happen organically. I totally agree with that. Like there's a reason why say like San Jose, the rivalry is there now as well with Vegas, right? Because they've battled a bunch of times in the playoffs.
They had some great playoff battles, right? Like you have to have these things like grounded in something, right? Like the Canucks just like every time they get to the playoffs, it's like some random opponent or whatever, or the Blackhawks. And then by the time the Canucks were ready to, I guess, settle in their competitive window, it was like the Blackhawks were just better. And so it was too late.
Yeah, it's exactly how it goes. I will say what is kind of nice, like, and this is kind of in a way to give credit to the NHL to a sense. It's wild to think about the fact that this time a decade ago, like this was just coming off of 2011, or we'll say like 2011, like before they got to their cup, they did their big cup run. The Canucks were in a division with Minnesota and Colorado because that was what they had. Those were their division those were two of their division rivals. And then literally, I believe it happened during the like the day of game 1 of the Stanley Cup final for the Canucks and the Bruins was when it got announced that the Thrashers had been bought by True North and they were moving to Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And that in itself completely changed the way the NHL realigned like all the divisions. It facilitated the opportunity to put Vegas and Seattle here now, and like honestly, like how much better is the league for it now? Like that we're in a pot, and like the Canucks are better for it now that they have a Seattle to play against, that they have a Vegas to play against.
Yeah, I mean, there were some growing pains, right? Because like Winnipeg was in that awkward division where they were playing like
they're in the Southeast,
the Southeast division,
Florida,
with, like Nashville and stuff. It just like made no sense at all. And then then you get Vegas in, and it kind of balances out a bit. And now you have Seattle, and it actually kind of makes sense.
Yeah,
divisions are finally kind of normalized a bit. There
are actually 16 Western-based teams now. Like it's not like before where they were totally padding it, being like, "What are you talking about? Detroit is totally a West Coast team."
Yeah.
What? Like, and
have you heard of the name the Midwest?
Yeah, duh. Have you ever, Columbus, Blue Jackets, blue, like Western Oceans? Like they're like really trying to sell you on Columbus being being in the West, even though they play on the Eastern time zone. Like that's exactly the league's come a long way. The Canucks are much better for it. And honestly, like in a way, it's one of those cases where it's like you want Seattle to succeed to a certain degree in the sense of like, because you want this to be there. Like you want this to exist as long as it can.
If like best case scenario or worst case scenario, depending how you're looking at it, the best thing that could happen is Seattle and Vancouver are either playoff teams this year or they're both out of playoffs this year, because at least then they're on the same kind of trajectory. And then, then at least they have something in common. Because it's hard, like you were saying with the Vegas and Arizona thing. You can't have one team being like this world-beating contender, and then the other is your first line center is Jay Beagle. Doesn't work that way.
Exactly. I don't know if you saw earlier today, like right before we started recording, speaking of the Coyotes, there was at one point where the Panthers were winning 2-1. The Coyotes had one shot on goal. Just incredible masterclass.
They're so good. They're so good at hockey.
Exactly. Before we kind of move on to the other like Canucks stuff, or like the other, the rest of the NHL, like any like sort of like Abbotsford stuff that we should probably that we're going to talk about today. There are two other things we should talk about as well. One being the fact that like is Elias Pettersson. Elias Pettersson we should talk about a bit. It's been a bit of a tale of two players in this case for Petey to start this year. Like he has been okay at times. And then there was a Seattle game where I honestly was like, oh, he looks like looks like there's something wrong. Like he genuinely looked like he was having a bad game. And like there were like lots of routine plays that are like routine for him that he would normally be so good at like picking up or making that play 99 times out of 100. Today was the day where that 100th time kicked in all categories for him. Like that was the 100th for him. Now certain people are making it way too big a deal and are being like, and are really trying to be like, oh, this is a greedy player. He got his money and now he stopped trying. And they're really like, apparently people are just like bending over backwards to blame him for the team not being as good as they are, which is just like asinine.
Bit of a miscalculation on their part.
Yeah. It's very much a complete overcorrection here. Yes, he has not been great. Like he hasn't been fantastic, especially not by Elias Pettersson standards. But he's not like the reason the team hasn't been as good. Like it definitely affects their like trajectory, but not to the degree that people are making it out to be, right?
Yeah, well, it's like the Quinn Hughes thing, right? Where Quinn Hughes was out one game because of injury or exhaustion or whatever it is, and everyone flipped out, being like, "Oh, the team sucks without Hughes. This is all, this is all Travis Green's fault." And
Oh yeah,
it's like, don't you just see like how much the team relies on one player to make things happen? It's kind of the Pettersson situation. Like, realistically, on a good team, him being absent shouldn't impact anything. If he's gone or having a bad night, that's why you have your top 9 that you've been advertising for the last 6 months, right? So that they can carry the load for when that player isn't having a good night or isn't producing, whatever.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. You can't give him shit for this. Like, last year, he started slow as well. And now he's starting this season on, like, he didn't get any preseason camp. He didn't play since March of last year. Like, he had that wrist injury that took him out of the rest of the season. Like, he is behind the 8 ball. So of course he's going to have like a really slow start. And the people that are like giving him shit and saying he's like selfish and not worth the money, like, give your head a shake.
That's
when the guy's on, he is like far and away the best forward on this team. Like,
it's one of those cases where whenever you see someone bring up the cap hit in terms of like those situations, especially with like young players, you always know that's kind of like it always comes off as kind of like projecting, in the sense of like you're more just upset that, it seems a little bit sometimes like people are just upset that they can't get paid $7 million to
how come I
play,
can't make $7 million sit on the bench? I'll do that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's one of those like, I could do this and I should get paid this much money. A little bit. Not everyone's like that, but like there are definitely a section of people that are like that for sure. Yeah. Where it's the you're mad that somebody is getting paid a lot to do something like kind of fun, like to do something, to play a sport. Which is silly at the end of the day, because the reason why they can afford to get paid that is because, again, they're worth it and they'll make that money back to
yes, eventually they will be absolutely worth it, right?
Yeah, bingo. And I will say with Pettersson, like, I'm a little worried, just in the sense of like, not in this, like, just in the fact of like, it's uncharacteristic to see him playing like the way he did against Seattle, where I really was watching him like there were a couple plays specifically where I just remember watching him either like a routine pass that he'd bobble, or like get picked off by and intercepted by a defenseman, where I'm just like, oh, something's not right. I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if he's not 100% right now. I don't know what, but he looks off. And
he really does like play like he's playing 4D chess with himself, like he's overthinking everything he does, kind of. And it's obviously led to some pretty bad results. Just doesn't look comfortable at all either. Like, he doesn't look like he has any chemistry with any line they throw him on. It's like really, it's quite bizarre. Jarring.
Yeah.
But for a guy like him, like, you just kind of like, we are only 6 games into the season, so theoretically it should come around for him. But like, the last few games haven't exactly inspired confidence that day's coming, right?
Not at least like in the immediate future. Yeah. It's weird. Like, but also like, and also like, I think it's worth throwing in there like the fact that I think a lot of the reason people are kind of yet to start really worrying about the Canucks or how they're playing is largely due to the fact that Pettersson hasn't been super great as well. So it's a little bit of both for some people, where they're kind of trying to have their cake and eat it too a little bit. Like, where they're like, oh, you shouldn't worry about the Canucks. It's only 6 games in, but also Pettersson is is doing really badly. And this is him now, like one of those things. But there were also like a couple like tweets where I saw like people like in a way doing the opposite thing, where they were doing like a very similar thing, where they were like, specifically there was the tweet, I think it was from Dan Riccio, that was like a little bit like where I saw that and I was like, like, not in the sense of it was like a bad tweet necessarily or anything, but what he said, I think he said something along the lines of like, when Elias Pettersson is playing at his best, this team is going to be hard to beat. And I looked at that and I was kind of like, on one, and I see the logic on that. Like, I totally see the logic on when your best player is playing at his absolute highest level, the level he's capable of. you definitely expect the team to play a lot better around him and play with a lot more confidence. I totally see the logic on where he's coming from with that. But at the same time, the problem is that it doesn't feel like the rest of the group you worry that with the rest of the group in particular, especially with like the bottom six, the depth guys, that this is as best as they can do. And that even if Pettersson comes back playing at his best, it's not going to be enough. Because that's a lot of pressure to put on one guy in a way, is to be like, oh, once he's back, everything is going to change about the group.
Yeah.
And a lot of people like this is nothing about Dan's take in particular. I think there's a lot of people who believe that once Pettersson plays at the level he's capable of, suddenly that's going to bring the talent level up of everybody around him. And my biggest concern from what I've seen from the first 6 games is that this might be, for some of those guys, as good as they can do.
Yeah, like Jason Dickinson, for example, has not had like a good start to the season. He finally scored a goal against.
Nice goal.
Yeah, it was a good goal.
Chicago, yeah.
Yeah, but again, against Chicago, like,
right.
Is he scoring at all if, say, they're starting off their season playing Vegas? I mean, actually, I guess Vegas, not really the best example, but imagine Vegas was good. But like, imagine they were playing like a top tier team. Is Jason Dickinson scoring his first goal yet in the first 10 games of the season? I don't know. Like,
yeah, he wasn't brought in to be a scorer, but like, yeah, the same. But
no,
you get exactly where you expect him to step up in that case to carry the load a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. And I think he's paying 3 years at $1 million, whatever. It's not an expensive contract, but for the contract that they signed him for, you'd hope he would be able to chip in and look a bit more effective than he has through 10 games. But yeah, I don't quite understand or buy the logic that like Pettersson reaching his rookie form is going to somehow rally the troops to also play above their current playing ability. No. I definitely get a vibe of what we see is what we got.
Yeah. And look, from certain groups, like, again, I mentioned Horvat, Pearson, and Garland. If that's the best they're doing great. They're doing arguably better than they have in past years. Like, you and I both noted that Pearson looks way faster this year, and he looks like he's playing with a new gear, which is fantastic especially for a guy like I forget if he's 30, like already hit 30, or if he's just a shade under 30. Like, he's around that area where he's like, normally you expect the players to start slowing down a little bit, and here he is kind of picking up a new gear a little bit, which is great.
He just turned 29.
There you go. So yeah, that's like right around I think they say like generally the peak is 27, 28 is about where your like peak years come in, or like maybe 26, 27 around there. So for him to somehow be faster than last year is is very impressive, and bodes well for him. Obviously Horvat got off to a little bit of a slow start. I think like there were games where I was definitely like, I'm not noticing as much of him as I'm used to, and that's concerning, but he's picked it up big time of late. So he looks a lot more like his normal self. Yeah. And Garland is on literally, I think the best start to a Canucks tenure in the franchise's history. Like, he has points in his first 6 games or something, like 6 out of 7. He has 7 points in 6 games. He's leading the team. He's looking incredible. Like, that's
all right. He's
right. Exactly. All right. I forgot who I'm on this show.
You forgot who you're talking to.
Yeah, I did.
He's been playing okay.
Yeah, they've been looking. Yeah, he's had a great start to the year. But then there are guys like, and JT Miller, who I think has actually done okay. Like, you look at his points, he's actually doing all right. Brock Besser, you expect a little bit more of, but he was injured, so you're giving him time. It comes down to the depth guys. It comes down to you're being called upon you're going to have to be relied on to do a little bit more, to punch a little bit above your weight, a bit. And certain guys have been very clearly not capable of doing so. Like, a particular big standout from the last game was Tucker Pullman, who honestly looked awful. Like, he looked terrible for all the things that people were like giving, like, we're talking about Pettersson. I was watching like, oh my God, Tucker Pullman looks absolutely awful, and he is driving me crazy every time he steps on the ice. I literally texted you because I was like, I think Tucker Pullman's going to make me forget about Tyler Myers real quick. And any issues I had with Tyler Myers. Tyler, if you're listening, I'm so sorry. You look great, buddy. You're doing a fantastic job.
You're doing great, darling.
Yeah. Tucker Pullman literally had a game where he not only was routinely giving the puck away in his own zone, he also literally high-sticked Quinn Hughes. In game, he high-sticked his own damn defensive pairing in the face, and he had to caused him to bleed, and he had to go back and get repairs. Jesus, good Lord. That one obviously is you're having a bad night. But also what the hell? Why are you here?
I can't even chalk it up to him just having an off night, because there's, in all the games that I've clipped of the Canucks, every single time I usually get 3 or 4 of Tucker Pullman, just like you wonder how he got to this level with such a poor ability at controlling his stick, or even making a pass is a tough task for him.
Yeah.
It's amazing he's at the level he's at and earned the contract he did, considering how bad he is at just basics. It's shocking. That high sticking thing was so funny to me.
It was to me. I just I just remember I buried my head. I was like, good Lord, this is of course, this is how it goes. Right. And then you see later, there's the clip of literally Hughes accidentally running into Brandon Tanev, gets called for interference anyway, and then Brandon Tanev literally on that play, and him and I forget who the other player was, basically tag team to haul Hughes down immediately after. Brandon Tanev literally has him and locked his legs around his left. He
just straight up scissor pinches his legs to pull him off. Pull him down. It's so funny.
No call. Absolutely no call. And then you literally see Hughes on the way down spit out some blood on his way through, and because again, Tucker Pullman high sticked him earlier. And I'm just Jesus, this is exactly how this, I fully expected the Canucks were going to lose at that point. I was like, geez, this is exactly how it was going to go, isn't it? And to be fair, I think Drancer put it really well. He had the tweet where he was like, Tucker Pullman is a guy being asked to play top 4 who shouldn't be playing top 4. He's being asked to do way too much for what he's capable of. And I agree with that. Tucker Pullman is probably, if you're asking him to play on your third pairing, is probably fine. That's probably okay. He might not be the best option available, but he could at least tread water, I think. From what I saw from him in that game, I'm like, God, I really, in a way, I was like, God, I really don't want him to ever play on this team again. You staple him to the press box right now if this is what you've got. One of the things that I guess we have to touch on right now, kind of in relation to that, is apparently, according to Matt Sakaris of Sakaris and Price, with Jeff Patterson, I think sent the tweet out. Travis Hamnick is en route to Vancouver, so. Hopefully the things that we're pretty sure were why he's not here have been sorted out, and this isn't the Canucks basically looking at their defense and caving
and going we need him regardless.
We need him regardless. You hope so.
I hope they don't cave on that, because that would be really
that would be more embarrassing to me than any loss of that you could have on the ice.
That's more embarrassing than the 32nd number jersey retirement. That's really bad.
That would be very, very bad. And I really hope that that's not what the case is here. I hope that it's one of those cases where Travis Hamnick had a different point of view coming in. So,
I mean, what a look it would be to basically say to your team that everything you went through last year regarding actually, no, I'm not going to get into it.
We don't need to get into it. We've done it enough. Done it enough. I will say that it would be interesting, especially considering the NHL literally just today or yesterday was hey, good news. We're literally only down to one player who is unvaccinated in the NHL. For them to be just kidding, it's 2 again. That would be very embarrassing, especially considering the way that things have gone. So hopefully this is a case of, Travis's, or if again, we have to be so careful here, because it's if what we are pretty sure is true, you hope that that's what it that's how it's gone down. Again, there could be other things involved. And again, this is why clarity is important in certain aspects. I'm sure we'll find out eventually, but for now, the Canucks defense is rough.
If he starts in Abbotsford, I'll make sure that is the first question and only question I ask him.
Oh, that's gonna be oh man. I guess that's a good I guess that would be a good segue in. We haven't talked about because tomorrow's like the home opener with Minnesota and everything.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about that in a second. I think first we'll do Abby Nuck's Corner. We don't really have a good name for it this year because
the name is pretty much the exact
Corner
name.
Doesn't roll off the tongue, and if we just said Canucks Corner, that could be anything.
Yeah. That could refer to anything on the NHL team, so it doesn't really help or specify anything.
For any of you listening, if you have a name suggestion, please send it to us so we have something to discuss here. So, Cody, accredited AHL writer, accredited media person, Cody Sievertson was on hand for both of the Canucks' first home games in Abbotsford against the Henderson Silver Knights.
Yeah,
both of which they won. They're 2-0 when Cody is in the building. Coincidence? I think not.
Yeah. Think about it.
Yeah, think about it. It's all changed since Cody's been around. Again, honestly, this is it's a very exciting day. It was very exciting for you to I saw some of your picture, your game day drip, as the kids would call it. As the kids would say, head to the rink. Just give us a little taste of the experience you went through and your first ever games as a media person, getting to cover an AHL team live and in person after doing it for so long from your home.
It was interesting to say the least, and it was really fun. Obviously, getting to actually go there live and then talk to players and coaches after the game. Totally fun, totally unique experience. Never would have expected that to happen in my lifetime. Frankly, starting out in my little cave basement suite that overlooked the cemetery, and now here I am with a badge that actually says media on it and my site's name on it. That's pretty surreal.
That was cool.
The games themselves, very wild, very chaotic, very ugly and crappy. But it's fun. It's AHL hockey, and it's not meant to be really structured or organized. It's pretty much there for fun, and that's exactly what fans got. I did not like how rainy it was on Sunday because I had to stand out in the pouring rain in a lineup of 30 people to try and pay for parking. And then when I finally got to the line to pay for parking, my card didn't work. So the guy who was really nice, he was the attendant or whatever, and he was drenched as well, and he was just he texted the security and he was don't worry about stall number XXX or whatever, because this guy's been I didn't have an umbrella, I didn't have anything, I was just standing out in the rain getting soaked.
I was gonna say, I would imagine with media people that you would get parking for free generally. I know at least that was how it worked in when I did AHL in San Jose. There was a list. Obviously, any person who was on the media list would get to park for free, and you didn't have to pay. So maybe that's so interesting. But
I'll have to reach out to
maybe you literally just
I'll send them a receipt.
Yeah. Because again, they usually have a VIP list that's generally not just players' families, players, what have you, coaches, etc. Yeah. So, and I would imagine that media or scouts of that would probably be on that list to be that accommodating. So maybe you just forgot to ask, but who knows? Either way, it's not a huge deal.
Yeah. It didn't really impact my evening. Still had a great time. Got to see Mikey DiPietro in one game, Artur Silovs his first pro shutout in the next game. So if you want to check out those recaps, I did them both. They're on my site, ahlnucksharvest.com. I won't spoil anything, but you should read them. They were really exciting games, and I had a lot of good, juicy quotes and clips to go with it. So check those out.
Yeah.
Shall we get into... Oh, sorry.
Oh, I had a couple more questions for you.
Oh, you did?
Yes, I did, because you're an interesting person. I don't know if you knew this.
I did not know this.
The other things I wanted to ask you about specifically in terms of the experience, because again, you weren't just at 2 games. You were at the first 2. You were at the very first 2 for the team in that new building. They have not even played exhibition or anything. What was the actual I think they won the first game, if I remember correctly, Madison Bowie with the OT winner. what's the atmosphere like for those games, like especially like different? Was there a huge what I'm most interested in knowing is, was there how big a difference in a way was there between the atmosphere at the first game, like the big one, the first game of the franchise, and then moving over to the second game? Did it change much, or was it still pretty much like same crowd, same vibe kind of thing?
First game was pretty hype. People were going nuts. The crowd noise was really good, like in arena. Like the venue has really good acoustics, so you can really hear, like, when something crazy happens and the crowd goes nuts, like you really feel it. Second game though, attendance dropped dramatically. I think the first attendance was something like 7,000, and then the Sunday game was down to like 3,900. So like it was like halved. You couldn't really tell, like the crowd was still pretty loud in the Sunday game. Like you didn't really notice it, but like when the barn is packed, you really can feel it, and it feels a lot more like there's a way better energy. So
yeah,
I don't know. It was fine. If you're there, you'll really enjoy it. It's a good, like, I don't know. It's just like a local hockey. It's
very much the case of like, if you're there, you're a diehard because you really like. It's not that you're there because it's like the big hip, like, it's not like the pro leagues essentially where it's like the big thing to do. People are going like, you see it at every Canucks game, every NHL game. There's always like the spaces just for like the people who are there on like business meetings, like the people who are there for the clout aspects, which is, your call, your decision. Obviously, at the AHL, you don't really get that. So when the people who show up for those games, those are the people who absolutely just love hockey to death and want to just support any local team they can. So that's always pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot of like the locals too, and it's the people that like can't afford or make it out to the Canucks games in downtown Vancouver. So they get something else to do. A lot of jerseys out there, a lot of Sedins, a lot of Horvats, a lot of berets.
Oh yeah.
A lot of great black skates. So quality stuff out in the valley.
Yeah, I will say I got some severe FOMO from seeing all the pictures of you guys like doing not just doing the media stuff, but even like the crowd shots of people just being at the game. I was like, oh, I would give anything to be there. If I had a car, I would have driven up, bought a ticket, and just walked my way in.
You should have just walked, man.
I should have just walked. You're right.
A real fan would have walked.
A real fan. I'm a fake fan. That's right. Since I've become a media person, I'm a fake fan. Yeah.
Not to gatekeep you, but you're sounding like fake.
Yeah. And then the last thing I wanted to ask you about was Danila Klimovich has had a pretty good start to the year. Like you said before, there's a lot of stuff that he needs to work on as far as like getting to an NHL level.
Yes.
But as far as the AHL is concerned and playing at the AHL level for a kid who's 18, if I remember, he's 18. Like I imagine he's doing really, really well considering that aspect of things, right?
Yeah, like his puck handling skills is clearly like you can see like the NHL talent that is there, like how quickly he can move the puck and just like control puck while under pressure. When he is without the puck is where he will need to improve the most, because it's a lot of laziness. It's a lot of not really engaging or activating or trying to chase down puck possessors. It's a lot of sitting there and waiting for the right opportunity where the puck is on his stick and he can do the thing that he's best at. It isn't really attacking defenders. It isn't really any of the defensive side or the two-way play. It's purely just bread and butter. If I have the puck, I'm going to rocket a shot or set up a teammate for a shot. Like, he doesn't really do all the other stuff, which I'm sure the coaching staff wants him to try and do. But Trent Cull had a quote where he was basically like, I'm not going to try and overwhelm him or try and like basically coach him to death. He's just like wants him to have his swagger at this level, especially as an 18-year-old. And he wants him to just like kind of develop on his own and figure it out as he moves along, which is fair because the team is deep enough where he doesn't really need to be like in like a Mark Stone of the AHL level. Like, he's still so young. He's like 18 until January. Like, he is a child. Like, literally, I joke that you're a child. This guy is an absolute child.
He can't
playing
drink
against men.
He can't drink here. He cannot have a drink here.
No, yet. He's just like a little baby, and he is doing very well against men on North American ice, not speaking the native language in a new culture. Like, he's adapting very well given what's against him. And he's at 3 points in 5 games or 4 points in 5 games, whatever it is. But he is doing very well in a league where typically the younger you are, the more hard it is for you to succeed. So he's doing well.
Awesome. That's that. And that's what people want to hear right now, because literally I think that's a lot of
they need the hope.
I think a little bit, because you know what, like there's not a lot down in that team right now as far as like the long-term future is concerned, with, again, the exception of maybe Jet Wu, the goalies, and Klimovich. That's about it. You have some guys that who might do decently in a pinch, but they're not like part of your long-term vision. If you've got one, that it's those other 4 at the very least who are. So you find your victories when you can get them, especially at that level. So, and it sounds like, they're off to a decent start, which is pretty good.
Yeah. Other than that, some NHL stuff, folks. Fortunately, we don't have anything miserable to talk about, so that's great. We have very happy things to talk about, like Chicago Blackhawks playing like such dog shit that they're talking about firing their coach. I'm sure you saw this, the image of Jeremy Colleton handing the final play board to his players and asking them to draw up a play in overtime or whatever it is.
I didn't. What?
You should look it up. Jeremy Colleton had like a timeout. He had the board basically to drop a play in overtime or like the final minute of play or whatever to try and tie things up. And instead of drawing up a play for his players, he handed it to Patrick Kane or whoever it was and was like, "Yeah, you guys figure it out."
That's fucking.
And that's not a joke. That's literally like what happened.
I did not hear that at all. That's insanity. Oh my god. You know what?
Making the rounds on Twitter. It's pretty great.
Yeah, that partially changes the question I was gonna ask, because in a way, like not a lot, but it changes it in a sense, because I was hearing all the stuff of like literally you're seeing the things where literally like before the home opener, when they're announcing, like introducing all the players and all the like the staff and everything, when Jeremy Colleton was introduced, game 1 in Chicago, not the Vancouver game, the game before it, he got booed. They booed him, like loud and obvious. Like the majority of the people were booing him, which is insane. Which I'm like, oh my god, that poor guy. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I've partially been like looking at the team. I'm like, is it really his fault? Or is it, I don't know, maybe the fault of the guy, again, who assembled him the team, who also is in trouble for a lot of other reasons? Is it maybe his fault the team is trash? Like, what's Jeremy Colleton supposed to do with that kind of a roster? Like, what is he? We've talked about it on this show in similar vein, but like, this is worse. This is much worse.
I think the logic is that in Chicago, like ownership's mind is they sold the fan base on, look at who we got in the offseason. We got Seth Jones, we got Marc-Andre Fleury, like we got rid of Duncan Keith and his like contract. Like who else did they get? They got Caleb Jones. Like they did all these moves and basically advertised the fact like, oh, we're not done yet. This is our bounce back year. And
they went all in a year where they should 100% not even be considering going all in.
Yeah. I mean, amazingly, Patrick Kane is like a point per game player, which
that's Patrick Kane. You expect that that's a shame.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's just like obviously it looks worse for Jeremy Colleton because the team was sold to the public as like, we're going to bounce back. We're not going to be like a bottom feeder anymore because look at these moves we made. Jeremy Colleton's going to show us the way. And obviously the moves have backfired terribly. That Seth Jones contract might get bought out before it's even like day one of the deal.
It is so, that's right. Because it hasn't even officially kicked in, which is bananas.
So for those that don't know, his current deal, it's the last year, $5.4 million. And then next year, running until 2029, 2030. So when I'm 40 years old, this contract will expire at a cap hit of $9.5 million.
Jesus Christ.
So if they bought that out, it's like an 18-year buyout hit.
How did he get in one hand, I'm like, literally, I'm like, how the hell did he get that much money? Like,
because he plays a lot of minutes. Like
that's literally it.
They saw the Tampa Bay series where he'd play like 42 minutes, and
they
were
saw
like,
like
that's
4 games of him, and that was it. They saw 4 games of him against Tampa, like 5 games against Toronto, and that was it. That was enough for them to be like, yep, this guy is a great defenseman, and oh my god, he is not. He is so bad. He is so bad in his own end. It is crazy. And also, just another thing that's worth noting as well is because, again, like you mentioned, his cap, it doesn't kick in. It doesn't kick in until next year, which means that reminder, the Hawks had to trade for him to get him. They could have not. They could have left it be. They could have not traded. They could have waited a year and then signed him to something. No, they actually traded assets. I have the trade right here in front of me.
I was gonna say, you read out the trade assets, and then as soon as you're done, I'm gonna read out the buyout details. Okay.
Oh God, here we go. So in exchange for Seth Jones, they sent the Blue Jackets Adam Boquist, Jake Bean, Cole Sillinger, a first round pick in 2022 or 2023. That they sent some of their best young talent and a first round pick. I potentially one that might be dead last and has no lottery protection for Seth Jones and a contract he does not have, and he's not on yet.
I believe the pick is top 2 protected.
Okay, that makes it better,
which might help. But
God.
So for those that want to know, any of you Blackhawk listeners, or I don't know if you're just lost or whatever, the buyout details. So if they bought it out before the contract is even begun to kick in, year 1, the cap hit would be $10 million instead of 9.5. Then for the next 3 years, the next 2 years, it'd be $3.3 million. And then in year 4, it's a $5.3 million hit. Then year 5, a $7.8 million hit. Year 6 year 7 and year 8, it's an $8.3 million cap hit. And then
so you're screwed.
It keeps going.
So
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years of a $1.3 million cap hit. That's a lot of moolah for a guy who looks awful.
Yeah. But guys, he needs to be one of the first 3 we named to the U.S. Olympic team because also because not only am I the GM of the Blackhawks, I'm also the GM of the American Olympic team, and I picked 2 of my own damn players to be the first ones on the team. Patrick Kane, sure, that makes sense. That makes sense that one makes sense. Austin Matthews, obviously, and then Seth Jones. Really? There wasn't any other American defenseman better? I could name 5 off the top of my head right now, including one that he was literally partnered with in Columbus, the better of the 2, Zach Werenski. Come on. Again, I am very much of the considering the amount of things going again. Yeah, in a way, straight up good. It could not happen to a more deserving GM and management team. God, because for all the stuff we've learned about the Blackhawks this summer, they deserve all of this. They absolutely deserve to wallow in this crap for the rest of the year.
We love to see it, folks.
I feel the only person I feel bad for really in this situation is Marc-Andre Fleury, because poor guy, he could have retired. He could have just retired. He could have retired, and instead he chose this. And God, it has gone so badly for him. It's gone so badly for everybody. It's for all you feel for some of the players, obviously, they weren't there. It's not their fault that some of them were not there. And again, I think it was Patrick Johnson, I think, tweeted it during the Canucks Blackhawks game, during Patrick Kane's 1,000th game ceremony. The whole team knew. That's all that you need to know. The whole team knew what was going on. And they deserve what they're dealing with. 110%. Full stop. They deserve to be this trash, and I hope they're this trash for as long as they don't address the crap they've done. Good Lord.
For other feel-good news, for you sports fans out there, there was another embarrassing loss for the Toronto Maple Leafs. The Pittsburgh Penguins didn't have Jeff Carter, Sidney Crosby, Chris Letang, Evgeny Malkin, Brian Rust, and they still crushed the Leafs 7-1.
God,
you love to see it. Checking the scores right now, the Leafs have also dropped their game against Carolina 4-1. Austin Matthews gets his first point of the season. We love to see it, folks. We're loving all the good news, all these feel-good newses to start the week. Couldn't be any better. Lachlan, I'm looking at your notes here. You want to ask me fuck, marry, kill on 3 random things. What?
Yes, I'm going.
What do these stand for?
So this is going to be this is our last segment of the show. This is our last show before Halloween. We didn't even talk about the whole thing that you had over the weekend as well, where
it's getting pretty serious.
You got personally brought up by
a wag.
I did not write down her name, but she is
Claire Stewart.
Claire Stewart, thank you.
The spouse of Lawson Krause of the Arizona Coyotes. Last year, I think it was Samantha CP _ who like tweeted or retweeted like her Halloween costume or whatever, and I jokingly was like, "Yeah, it's kind of shit." And
you were like, but it's
I basically said like your costume was shit. I didn't buy the costume for what it was, and then I went on a big tangent going over her other costumes and being like really overly critical to comedic effect. And she
got it.
She added me. Yeah, she got the joke. That was good. It would have been really bad if he was like, "Who the fuck's this nut
She
job?"
was like you had actually like offended them like that.
Yeah.
Bad.
But 1 year later, or not even a year later, dropped my name out of nowhere, QT'd the original and was like, I need a good costume idea. And so I pitched a few to her and her spouse, Lawson Krause. So hopefully, if Canucks fans are listening and things go the right way, we could be seeing Lawson Krause and his spouse, Claire Stewart, in Louis Eriksson Eat Pussy headband drip, which...
This show is explicit, right? I tagged that because I think so. Yeah, it should be.
But fingers crossed. If you want to, you can probably find the tweet on my timeline somewhere. And I think the more likes it gets, the bigger the chance that we'll actually see this happen. Because there would be nothing funnier than Louis Eriksson going to Arizona and then everyone just wears costumes based on that trip that he took with all the Canucks to Mexico. And he was spotted getting lit, shaking a maraca with an Eat Pussy headband.
Very funny.
Fingers crossed, folks. I put in the work for the memes and the dreams. Fingers crossed that actually happens. But anyway, back to the fuck, marry, kill. To
close up before Halloween here. We can either do this fuck, marry, kill, or we can just straight up do like your rankings here. So for those of you who don't live in Canada, basically every Halloween, at the grocery stores, the main grocery stores, you can, of course, get when you're getting Halloween candy for trick-or-treaters and stuff, you can obviously, go and get the bags for the specific kinds of candy you're looking for or whatever. But we also have something that I never saw in the States when I was living there. This is a Canadian specific thing, is these boxes, these big multi-pack boxes that a bunch of the major candy companies make, that each have a set, have basically a roster of candy in each of them. Specifically, the 3 that are most popular, there's a red one, there's a purple one, and then there's a black one. So I'm going to read the 3. I'm going to read the 3 boxes out and what each of them carry. So the red box is the Nestle box, which generally comes with Kit Kat, Aero, Smarties, and Coffee Crisp.
Okay.
The purple box is the Cadbury one, and it comes with Caramilk, Crispy Crunch, Mr. Big, and Wonder Bars.
Okay.
And then the final one is the Mars box, which has Mars bars, M&Ms, usually peanut butter and chocolate, Twix, and Snickers.
Ooh.
There's also a Hershey's box, which comes with
that's the white box.
Either either white or brown.
Yeah.
It comes with Reese's, O. Henry, and Hershey's. I did not include that one because I thought that one because it's all like peanut. Like generally, I think all of them are basically peanut things. I didn't necessarily include it, but here, well, you know what? We'll throw it in. We'll say that one's the white box.
Okay.
We'll throw the Hershey's box in there. So
Okay.
I guess we'll say because now we have 4 options. If you want to, instead of doing fuck, marry, kill, just do rank them like which one you feel are like the best to least here.
Okay. I guess I'd go marry the Hershey box. Fuck the black box, the one with the M&Ms and stuff.
Okay.
And then kill the Cadbury box because Cadburys are gross.
That is, okay. I think that's about where. You said so where would you put the Nestle box then? Where does that one rank in? If you're putting that if we're going 1 to 4 here,
like the Kit Kat Red box or whatever.
Kit Kat Red box, yes, the red
I'm
one.
Good. I'll pass.
Really? Okay. So it's also there. Interesting. So for me, I will say I agree. Like, I think the purple box is the one I would not go for. I think all of these have like one candy that I'm not like crazy about.
Yeah, that's how they always do it, right? They load it up with the candy nobody wants because they can't sell it.
They load it up with the candy that no one wants so they can get rid of it, some of it, right? But each of them also have like things that I like in a lot of them. I would say that if I were going rankings wise here, I would say I actually put the red one at the top for me. Because I'm a big Kit Kat guy. And I like Coffee Crisp. I'm not as crazy about Smarties and Aero, but like I like them enough that I would eat all of them, sort of thing. Whereas say like the Cadbury box has like Crispy Crunch in there, which is like kind of like a Butterfinger. It's like a different, it's like a weird coffee, like toffee flavored coffee, like a Butterfinger. And I hate those. Like I can't even eat them. Like those just get thrown out. Like that's the candy that gets thrown out for me. So I'd put purple in 4. So I guess kill off the purple box. The Reese's where I have the hard time. Reese's are my favorite of the candy. I would say outside of like peanut butter M&Ms are my absolute all-time favorite candy. What's your favorite candy actually? Like what's your if you were picking just for you, what is your number 1?
Ooh, I am partial to Glossette raisins.
Really? I would not have expected that. That's an
I'm not like a chocolate guy either. Like, okay, I'm really not, but so, like those pink.
That like the raisins. So the raisins are the peanuts.
Yeah. Okay. No peanuts. What are you?
Not the peanuts. You're not interesting. You're not a peanuts guy. Okay. See, I'm very much in the if the candy has peanuts in it, I am much more in. I'm hooked. I'm interested. I'm sold. I'm on board. Yes, very much so. Like I like peanut butter M&Ms are my favorite candy. Next up is Reese's or Reese's cups.
Reese's cups are absolutely rock.
Yeah, absolutely rock. Which is why I think like if I'm including the Hershey's box in here, I would actually have to say that it jumps over the Mars box for me into second. It's second, yeah. The Cadbury box, the Mars box with the M&Ms, the Twix, and the Snickers is third because I would eat most of those. But I wouldn't eat I don't like Mars bars, so I would not be as interested in that box out immediately out of the gate. And then the Cadbury one, most of those are just not my favorite. I'm not a big caramel guy. I'm not not big on the weird Butterfinger style candy. There are more things that I would be less interested in eating in that one. So yeah, like it goes red, white, black, purple for me.
That makes a lot of sense. If you guys differ with our opinions on which box of candy you would sexually gratify yourself with, leave it in the comments. We have a YouTube channel. We've got a podcast channel. You know where to find them all. We talk about every single episode. Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Podbean, all them jams. We have our YouTube channel at the CreaseCast. We also have our Patreon where we have $1 and $5 tiers. Lachlan, where can they find your content?
You can find my content on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Lach and the Crease. You can also find my writing work over at CanucksArmy.com. I write for them pretty frequently. And you can also check out my other podcast, Locked On Canucks, which I do with Nick Bondi Monday to Friday. Although actually this is Bondi's last week. He's actually Wednesday is his last show before he moves on to a much cooler, much bigger job in his life. So it'll just be me on Thursday and Friday of that show. and for like a little bit, for like at least the next little while. But yeah, go check that out. Cody, where can they find you?
They can all find me at Cody Sievertson on Twitter and my website, ahlnucksharvest.com. Most recent game recaps are up there already. I think Baby Canucks come back this weekend for the final 2 games of a 4-game homestand. I'll probably be at one of them live, but I don't know. I'm very tired. I might just skip it and record or recap from home. Otherwise, folks, make sure you like and subscribe. Leave us some reviews. We appreciate those as well. And we'll catch you next time we record together. We love you and happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Bye.